If you've thought of having that moment of self-care for yourself and maybe felt guilty about it, or put your feet up to read a book and felt guilty about it, or have a hard time receiving compliments or gifts or any of those things, my goal with this story is for you to anchor yourself in how much that's an innate part of ourselves as females.
Yeah, I love starting here because it's actually one of the things that I'm really challenged with. Nick will give me a compliment and instantly I'm deflecting it, or I'm looking away, or I'm saying something negative to counteract that compliment. And it really took some time for me to realize that, like, wow, I have a really difficult time receiving anything. Because the moment I do, or I feel worthy of that reception, guilt shows up, shame shows up, the old conditioning and beliefs that I'm not worthy of that, or I'm not supposed to be receiving, I'm supposed to be giving. And so when I started to become more aware of that, I really started to tap into like that connection between our body and how that impacts how we're receiving outside of ourselves. So one of the things that we've lost is lost the art of being, like you were saying, because we're so connected to the doing. We're trying to keep up in a very like male dominant world. Dominant in a way, I'm not saying that they're like dominating over us, but really because culturally we've been conditioned to operate like little men. And we're not little men.
Mm-hmm.
Our hormone cycles are different. They have a 24-hour cycle where ours is a monthly cycle, and we're constantly shifting and changing. And when you think about life itself, like we've been given this gift to move the generations forward together. And inside the body, when we're looking at our hormones and how the body is changing and how birthing even happens, in the beginning, none of that would happen if we didn't learn how to receive. So every month we release an egg, right? It's coming down the fallopian tube. And when you look at it microscopically, you see this egg just kind of sitting there for a little while. And it's sitting in its like beingness because getting ready to receive. So if there is sperm that enters the uterus and then goes into the fallopian tube, first of all, the sperm has to go through all these tests. So there's a bunch of them coming in, but only a few make it in front of that ovum. And while the egg is sitting there, it's secreting chemicals to discern, which sperm is going to live up to the standards that she needs him to be, depending on like background and strength and all these things. And really what happens in that moment is both have two different heartbeats or beats, if you call them. And the moment there's a merger, the only reason why there is a merger, because she now releases that chemical and allows some space for that merger to happen. She's not doing anything. She's just sitting there in reception, in receiving. And then they connect and become one. And now the beats have become one. Now there's one heartbeat there. And then they travel together into the uterus, into the wall to create this new home, to create this new life. And if we didn't understand or our body didn't know how to receive, life wouldn't move forward. And yet in our everyday, we're so conflicted by this one simple thing, to just receive the support, receive the help, receive the gifts that are coming your way instead of deflecting them away because we've been conditioned to think that that's what we're supposed to do.
Absolutely. I mean, Sonya, just as you're telling this, I'm reminded of my love for you. I think as humans, we're designed to be in these cultures and these communities where we sit around the fire or, whatever it is. And we're told stories because stories help us remember, they remember the lessons of who we are and why we do what we do. And we've lost that art and that beauty. And you are a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And I love this story. And I'm wondering to you, like, how does that story apply to our lives as women? Like, how has that impacted your life? Hey, real quick, have you ever felt like there's no time to rest, put your feet up, or even think about picking up a book? It's exactly why I created Best Friends Book Nook. This is not your typical book club. It's designed for busy women just like us who are wanting to connect with ourselves, grow, but without the pressure. In this free community, we choose inspiring, easy to read books and create space for ourselves, even if it's just 5 minutes a day to breathe, reset, and finally enjoy a little me time. The best part, we have regular community connection calls where we share share insights, connect, and support each other. If this sounds like what you've been craving, check the links to Book Nook in the description. We'd love to see you there. Now, back to the show.
So when you're stuck in a cycle, like when we're stuck in the cycle of doing, we're constantly thinking and having anxiety about the future. Like, what can I control? What can I do in this moment? What can I fill my time with? What can I distract myself with? How do I get ahead? So what we've done is really taken away this autonomy on how we make choices about success and what that means for us. It's taken away our voice. It's taken away our capacity to tune into our intuition and that whisper of our soul that constantly is there for us to support us and nurture us. And in that loss, in that disconnect in our physical body, we're sitting in a state of dis-ease. So when we're wearing that badge of busyness, what we're doing is we're creating more stress in our body. We're creating this environment where only our stress hormones can thrive, whereas our reproductive hormones like progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone that help us thrive have to take a back seat because it's helping us survive just that moment of stress, that moment of doing. And as we get stuck in that, we're so disconnected from ourselves is we're now developing these walls. We're now not centered. We're now impatient. We're now irritated. We're now feeling like we're abandoning ourselves in every moment and having internal conflicts, which then externalize into our conflicts with our children, with our partners, with the job that we have. And what that's translating to is a lot of unhappiness. And the more we stay stuck in that state, the harder it is to see beyond all of the noise, to see beyond all of the conditioning that we've been living with and the narrator that we've been listening to in our minds. And so in the being, in the receiving, we can start to make more discernment. We can start to understand, like, okay, who's been guiding my story for all this time? What's the why behind putting my alarm on for 5 o'clock, drinking that coffee, getting out the door as fast as I can, making a schedule that's completely packed from morning to night, and then needing the wine in the night to wind down and just collapsing in bed, but then up at 3 a.m. with the to-do list and starting that day all over again. So really going back to the why helps us understand why it is that we're taking these actions.
Yeah. And I want to go deeper with that. Let's transition to that because I think, what's beautiful about this beginning story is like the power of receiving, and like you said, literally life wouldn't happen if those parts of our body didn't sit back and just wait and receive. And now I want to apply this to the woman perhaps listening that's like, okay, that's all great and beautiful, but like I'm running around. This is my life. My job's busy. I've got people I'm taking care of. Okay, I need this 5-minute break of nothingness. I'm exhausted. I need to sit and put my feet up. But then guilting or shaming ourselves for doing it. Well, if we can start to reframe and create a little bit of leverage of like, this is literally for my health, or, my periods are awful. And like starting to do these things is literally going to have an impact on how that can change. That I'll no longer have to call out of work the day one of my period, or the stuff going on with my thyroid. Like these small choices stack up and literally impact our health. So what I want to ask Sonya is when you ask a patient, the question as you're dealing with the physicality, but then you're asking the deeper questions, like say, what is it in your life that you're escaping from? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. The tools that I use are a lot of meditation, yoga, breath work. It's like all we're really doing is bringing back remembrance. Here are some tools. Here are some things that have worked for me, and here are things that I've seen work for others. Let's see what fits into you. I call it, so mine would be like the Sonya way, or yours would be like the Melissa way. Like how do we find that for you? And more often than not, because us women are so stuck in our minds, in Ayurvedic medicine, we call it like the Vata mind. We're kind of stuck in that doing, that busyness, like the buzziness. So yoga, movement, anything that we do with our body brings us back into our body. And then the more flexible we become in our body, the more connected we become to that body, the more connected and flexible we become in our minds. So then we're starting to, I know this is a really long answer to your question about the process, but there really is no one 5 steps that's going to fit every single person, but creating this idea around like asking questions about self-inquiry, about trying things and seeing if they work, that I found has been able to give women freedom to feel their way through all of it.
For like the busy woman who maybe can't get to a yoga class or to the gym, is running from point A to B to Z, what are the micro moments and opportunities for getting into our body throughout the day?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a fancy yoga class or changing into fancy clothes. Doesn't have to do any of that. It could be a few seconds, a few minutes, a few moments. It could be you opening your eyes first thing in the morning and just placing your hands over your chest and just breathing. And then you're getting out of bed and doing a cat cow and something that reminds you to come back here. So there's a mudra called the mudra of unshakable trust that I get a lot of women to do, where they're interlacing their fingers and just placing their hands over their chest. And this is just a reminder. So I always tell them, as soon as your mind is taking you away from the moment, just come back here. Find a moment. You might be making your kids lunches, start doing some calf raises. Your kids might be getting ready for school and they're not getting out the door and there's so much going on. Put on some music, start dancing. You're still moving your body. It doesn't have to be extravagant. And again, I know these are all things that you teach too. It is those micro moments that help you remember. And so maybe you get up, 5 minutes earlier. If you can't do that half an hour earlier or the hour earlier, you get up 5 minutes earlier and you shake your body. You jump up and down. You just come back here. So doing that, you start to create this new pattern in your brain and start to tell your brain that you're worthy of that time. You start to then unstick from that story of unworthiness to worthiness, because you start to see that, it doesn't take much to find me again. So the next time you do it, just in a few moments, just you thinking about it, just you thinking about that part of you that's going to be in your body brings you back. So the more you do it, the easier it is to get into that space really, really quickly.
If you like that, you'll enjoy the full version, and you can get that simply by clicking here. Be sure to also subscribe so you don't miss any future content.